Hi everyone, my name is Charlie, and today I have been awake since 4:30. I have arrived at work at 7:30, and the car park is empty. The roads weren't clear, but I was in that first bit of traffic before it turns into just gridlock. And it was surprising, to say the least, to be in traffic that was constantly moving for a Monday morning, but that is simply because I can't be bothered waiting around, so I'd much rather be here and make videos than be stuck in a long line of traffic. So yeah, the moral of this story is that if you want to arrive at work and avoid traffic, then leave the house 2 hours early. It has been a funny old time since my last one of these videos. I did mention that my grandmother, they thought she might be dying, and she had, at that point she had died, but they'd brought her back round. And we anticipated her death, and last Monday she did actually finally die. And I've struggled with how to actually say this in one of these videos. I at first thought, well, let's not say anything, and then I wrote a few tweets, posted them and deleted them within like 40 seconds each time, because I just didn't feel comfortable in just saying it like that. But naturally it's meant that the last week has been an exceptionally strange time. She didn't have the best final few years in her life, so I keep thinking that maybe it was some sort of relief that she did end up going, but it is still difficult to actually process grief that doesn't feel like any sort of grief I've had before. It feels very much full of guilt, and this is just guilt of my own, of like not being there more, and just I was fine thinking that it was a relief until my dad was going through her house with his sister, and he brought some things back, and one of them was a card that I must have written when I was about 4 years old, with stick drawing of Santa Claus, and it was a Christmas card, and I couldn't spell yet. I couldn't spell her name, I could only spell my name, and when I saw it straight away, I was reminded of making it at school and getting incredibly annoyed because they made me write Charles instead of Charlie. And so I saw this, and I'd had this idea over the last few years that we weren't necessarily that close, because neither of us is really the type of person to like show emotion so overtly, and so I think I mixed up our reservations about not expressing emotions as a separation between us. And so when I saw this card, I ended up feeling quite the wave of guilt, because I was like, well, maybe it wasn't a sort of love that was all about, you know, hugging and telling each other how we felt, because neither of us is really like that. Maybe it is more about keeping mementos and the nostalgia that comes from those, because I made this little scrap of paper 20 years ago, and it didn't look like it had been damaged in any way at all. And then, so I felt this guilt about that, and slowly this guilt has just built up with finding a photograph of myself as a baby, and they're so rare to see because my mother's always kept them hidden, so I've only ever seen one. And then seeing the photo of her from her first marriage when she was only about 17 or 18 years old, and she's got this smile on her face, and I just feel like it was such a rare thing to actually see her smile that I just can't help but wish that maybe I myself had done more to maybe make her smile in the last few years. And it's an extremely strange thing to go through, in that the grief is so much compounded by guilt. And there's also, it's one of those things where she bought our Doris and she sent it to her sister, who's also called Doris, and she had it, and she kept, I don't know that she kept it, but she couldn't even read because, well, she could read, but the last few years of her life she's had macular degeneration, so she's been quite blind. And, you know, she had dementia in the end as well. She was deaf. And these are the reasons why I say, with all the problems she had, it was maybe some sort of relief and more compassionate for her to go. But it's still just niggles at me. Like, my Auntie Hilda died 10 years ago now, and she was riddled with terminal cancer, and by the end was no longer the person she had been. And whenever someone brought up her death, I didn't cry. I laughed because I just found it so stupendously funny that people were offering me some condolence, and it wasn't as disrespect for her, because I have really fond memories of my Auntie Hilda, from the other side, my mum's side of the family. But I don't think that I experienced grief at the time. I think that I just felt pleased for her because she no longer had to go through what she'd been going through. And I don't know how to explain it. Although I know that maybe my nan had a poor few years over the last few years, the idea that she's not around is still, I don't know, it's still exceptionally strange. And I know that eventually this idea of feeling guilty might go down and disappear a bit, but I know that it's definitely going to be one of those things in future that does fuel my insomnia and keep me up at night. And I don't know, it's been a bit of the stressful time, just because I worked on Monday, but no, I worked Friday, Saturday. I didn't work from Monday to Thursday last week, but Wednesday and Thursday I wasn't really around because my other nan had to have chemo. So it was this second-hand hearing of everything from my dad, whose mother had died, and it's strange just seeing other people grieve in their own way and knowing you can't help because everybody has their own experiences and their own ways of coping. And mine seems to have been just to fill myself up with tea and drink a lot of tea and just go over things in my head that I definitely have no control over. But yeah, I didn't think that I'd end up feeling like this, and I didn't think I'd end up going over all of this, but it's amazing what one Christmas card from a 4-year-old can do. So yeah, I doubt that you'll get anything from this video. It's very much more of just me rambling at the camera, but until next time, that is all.